Hi, I'm Chris Lee at Vandy Sports, also host of the Vandy Sports podcast. We're starting a new thing on Tuesdays. As you know from watching Vanderbilt football, Clark Lea or whoever the coach has been always has a press conference on Tuesday in which they break down what's ahead. They give us an update on the news of the day, depth charts, those sorts of things. And so Clark Lea had his first press conference today. And with that, I want to go ahead and break down some things that he said. Not a lot of big news coming out, but I think the most notable thing was that he's named a starting quarterback, and to nobody's surprise, that is Ken Seals. Ken, of course, started all 9 games a year ago. When I watched practice, looked like the best of their options. Mike Wright gave him some interesting moments at times. Wright can run the ball a little bit better and do some interesting things, but I think it was Ken's accuracy with the ball and his consistency that won him the job. Same things that we saw last year. So officially now, Ken Seals is Vanderbilt's quarterback. Mike Wright will be the backup. Now, having said that, Clark Lea did make some mention of using Mike Wright in some different ways, talking about how he had earned the right to see the field in his own way. Did not tell us what exactly that would be, but I'm interested to see what it is. I have had the opinion for a while now that Mike is probably the best athlete on the team. I don't think he's their starting quarterback because I think that's Ken Seals' job, which he earned. But I think Mike is such a good athlete that you want him on the field whenever possible. And so I'll be interested to see what that looks like when they take the field against ETSU on Saturday night. Some other things of note: they named the captains today, and those are Davian Davis and Elijah Mcallister. No huge surprise there. When you've heard Clark Lea talk about guys who were team leaders in the offseason, those are two names that always popped up at the top of the list. And Davion Davis, to me, the guy that maybe is much of a leader as anybody on the team. I'll give you an example. They had a fight at practice, or a near fight last week, where a player did something after the whistle that drew a flag from an official. And these are the kind of things that under Derek Mason at times, they did not have the talent to compete with other teams. But what you had to do is make sure you executed your assignments. You didn't mess something up. You didn't get a post penalty flag or something like that. The kinds of mistakes that Vanderbilt can't afford to make. Well, after a couple of teammates got into it and an official threw a flag, Davion Davis jumped right into the middle of it, basically called the team over and shoot everybody out for a solid 2 or 3 minutes. And Clark Lea talked about that after practice, said, that's great leadership. That's the kind of thing we cannot afford to have happen, and really commended Davian Davis for his role in that. It was impressive. I was there, and I think that's one reason that he's been named a captain. Now, Elijah Mcallister, another guy who was named a co-captain of the team. Again, they only named two, but not a big surprise because when leadership comes up all the time, that's a name that gets mentioned. So those two guys will be the captains for this season. Now, he did mention they've got a leadership council. I tried to write down all the names. We posted the full video, by the way, at vandysports.com on our YouTube channel. So anything that Clark Lea said today, you can see for yourself. But as I took notes, the other guys on the leadership council included Mike Wright, Ken Seals, Deshaun Jerkins, and I think he named another 2 or 3 guys. So you can check those out for yourself. But if you want to know who the team leaders are, those are the names that have consistently popped up almost from the time that he got here. Those were the names that you heard today. In terms of what he's looking forward to the most, I think Clark just seemed more excited just to be playing football. And let's face it, it's been a long off season. This is a team that's not won a game since Missouri. And when was it? October of 2019. Last season was a long one. Of course, Clark Lea has waited a long time to be a head coach. So when I asked him, what are you most looking forward to? The thing that popped into his head first, I think, was we're just excited to play football. And I think that's a sentiment that a lot of Vanderbilt fans and players would echo too. I think they're just ready to get out there and tee it up against ETSU. I asked Clark, what are you most concerned about going into the opener? He said just the need to be on top of things. Now, he didn't necessarily bring out specifics and say it's a huge concern. I think this was just a pretense of we've got to take care of the things that we need to take care of and be focused and execute plays. And frankly, when I watched them in August scrimmages and practices, I thought that they were pretty well on top of things. I did not think there were a lot of blown assignments. There weren't a lot of stupid penalties. I think that's one thing that made the fight in practice last week kind of stand out. You see a lot of those things in fall camps where you get skirmishes and fights and things that are just an indication of a lack of discipline. You didn't see those things through most of the preseason, but I think to hear Clark reiterate today, those are the kinds of things that we're going to have to avoid. It was interesting to hear. I asked him in terms of his prep, what is it that you are influenced by as you go into your first game as a head coach? Because remember, Clark Lea has not been a head coach at any level, college, high school, anything like that. He's been a coordinator, he's been a position coach, but he's never been a head coach. He said the guys that influenced him and that maybe he had consulted, I think consulted is probably my word. I don't know that he ever actually dropped that in terms of making a phone call and asking guys, but he said his influences were Brian Kelly, who of course he worked under at Notre Dame. Clawson at Wake Forest is a guy that he's worked with. Scott Schaefer at Syracuse was the head coach, while Clark was, I believe, the linebackers coach there. And he named a few other guys too that have been influences. So those are the guys that I think he's going to draw from as he gets ready for his preparation, his routines, everything that you do as a head coach that he's never done before. Those are the guys that he said would be his influences and all that. Finally, the last thing, someone asked availability of some players. In practice late in camp, there were some guys that I think we would all expect to have big roles for this team that we didn't see in fall camp. Two guys notably on the line were Dan Dawkins, who started some games, and Cole Clemens, who started before. And I think Cole will probably start this year. Those were guys that he said should be available for Saturday. DeRicky Wright, another guy who's missed some practice that we wondered about. Clark Lea said also that all those guys should be available for the first game. He didn't give any more details beyond that. But if you're wondering, are those kids who missed practice going to be in uniform and playing for ETSU? The answer we got today sure seemed like that'll be the case. Now, I'm still waiting on a depth chart. They've not issued one of those yet. Usually those come out on Tuesday before the press conference. That was not the case today. I was told by Vanderbilt that there will be one coming later today. So when we get that, we'll post that at vandysports.com. We'll break that down. I'll tell you what maybe surprised me, what didn't surprise me, those type of things. So we're all waiting for that depth chart because I think that gives you an idea what the coaches are thinking, and does it back up what we saw in fall practice, or do they have other ideas? So we're all waiting on that. And once we get that, we'll have a breakdown for you at vandysports.com. Anyway, thank you for listening to our live stream today. This is something we've not done before that I hope to do this year. We will not only post the video of the Zoom call that we have with Clark Lea on our YouTube channel, so you can see everything that he said for himself. But we'll try to have one of these live broadcasts afterwards where we break down everything that he said and tell you what stood out or maybe what we weren't expecting, so that you've got some analysis to go with that too. And of course, we've got our podcasts several days a week at vandysports.com. Those are always free. We've got our coverage right now. We're in the middle of previewing every scholarship player for the year. I'm working on most of those. Bruno Reagan's going to help me with the offensive linemen. So if you don't subscribe to vandysports.com, we've got a good breakdown of all the scholarship players there. We're about a third of the way through that, but we'll have that finished before the first game. Anyway, we'll have you covered on Saturday for the game. I'll be in the press box with Bruno Reagan. We will probably do one of these YouTube live things after the game too. That's something we've done in bits and pieces there, but I used to do a radio show back in the day where we did a post game. And so this will be kind of the attempt to bring that back in a different form. Hopefully we'll take some questions on the Vandy Sports message board, maybe some here live too. So anyway, that's something we're hoping to bring back. If you're interested in sponsoring that, please reach out to me. You can get me at chrislee70@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to entertain what that might look like. But anyway, I'm Chris Lee at vandysports.com. Thanks for listening to the live stream today. And again, be sure and check after the ETSU game. Once that press conference is over, Bruno Reagan and I hope to do another one of those. So we hope we'll catch you then.